House Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
I rise to speak to Bill 25, Housing and Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act. Bill 25 builds on legislation introduced in the fall of 2023, most notably Bill 44. It aims to align zoning rules, tighten compliance, and enable small-scale multi-unit housing like triplexes and townhomes. The high cost of housing remains top of mind for individuals and families across British Columbia. In every community I visit, the message is consistent and clear. People are struggling to afford a safe, secure place to live. As Ricardo Tranjan, a political economist with the Canadian Centre of Policy Alternatives, reminds us, we do not have a housing crisis. We have a housing affordability crisis. It's not a crisis because the system is working exactly as it was designed to, enriching property owners while pushing renters, low-income households, and Indigenous people further to the margins. That is not a functioning market. That is a crisis built into the foundation of our economy. Bill 25 builds on the legislation introduced in the fall of 2023, most notably Bill 44. It aims to tighten compliance and make a variety of other changes. But while some elements of Bill 25 are reasonable and necessary, such as closing loopholes in short-term rentals and updating local planning statutes, it still continues the trend of centralizing control and overriding the careful planning done by local governments. Along with short-term rental changes, the government says the bill would ensure all local governments are meeting small-scale multi-unit housing requirements that allow for more forms of housing. In response, Corey Ramsey, the president of the Union of BC Municipalities, said she expects local governments are going to be disappointed that the province continues to centralize decision-making for housing in Victoria. The government's approach, she says, could significantly increase infrastructure costs for local governments who are being asked to carry the burden of rapid densification without the financial support or planning capacity to match. The province is asking municipalities to add density without sidewalks, without sewer upgrades, without sufficient water lines, and then wonder why development is stalling or why communities are frustrated. Bill 44 applied a one-size-fits-all approach to housing across the province, upending official community plans which have already carefully mapped out housing needs and stripped local councils of their ability to hear from residents about the future neighbourhoods. The legislation contains no provisions for affordable housing. Further, when Bill 44 was introduced, it was passed under time allocation. Analysis and modelling were released only after legislation passed, after the House had adjourned, and after Cabinet had approved regulations behind closed doors. This is not how we build public trust. This is not how we support evidence-based policymaking. The Union of BC Municipalities expressed concerns about the legislation at the time. While recognizing the urgent need to address the housing crisis, the Union stated, the shift towards prescriptive centralized planning comes also with risks and potential unintended consequences. My colleagues raised concerns at that time, and they were right, as it turns out. The former MLA for Saanich North and the Islands warned that these reforms could inflate land values, entrench wealth inequality, and put home ownership even further out of reach for working people. Let's not forget, in November 2023, Statistics Canada released a report showing that children of multi-property owners see a significant economic advantage over those whose parents rent. That's Bill 44. Now to Bill 25, which entrenches that inequality by turning thousands of single property owners into multi-property owners. This isn't housing policy, it's wealth transfer policy. We've built more homes in this province, but prices keep rising. Why? Because, as Ricardo Tranjan explains, adding supply won't fix the affordability crisis if the homes being built are out of the reach of the people who need them most. In other words, not all supply is good supply. Today, developers are building for profit, not for affordability, and what gets built in isn't accessible to low-income renters, seniors, or people with disabilities. Yes, the private sector has a role in building housing, but 15% of British Columbians are in core housing need. Their housing is inadequate, insecure, and unaffordable because they're spending more than 30%, almost at times 50%, and even more than 50% of their annual income on housing. The market has consistently failed to produce the volume of housing needed to meet the core housing needs. It is the responsibility of government to regulate the market and fill the gaps, and yet neither Bill 25 nor its predecessor include any provisions for affordable housing. This is a missed opportunity. Let's ask a simple question. Who benefits from these legislative changes? Developers? Yes. Multi-property homeowners? Absolutely. Investors? Without question. But renters? Working-class families? Seniors? Indigenous communities? Not yet. Consider this. The Urban Development Institute, which represents developers and real estate professionals, lobbied the government 80 times in the year before Bill 44 passed, including 25 meetings directly with the minister. Who wasn't in the room? Renters, Indigenous leaders, tenancy advocacy groups, small town mayors. They weren't part of the process, and it shows. We were told that rents would come down, the minister says by 5%, but my caucus staff, most of whom are renters, haven't seen it. My constituents haven't seen it. What they have seen is growing insecurity, rent evictions, and increasing homelessness. The province says conditions are improving. Yet, Gina Berg, Executive Director of the Fraser River Indigenous Society, recently said, things aren't getting better. Since 2023, there has been a 30% increase in Indigenous unhoused. This can't continue. This is something we cannot accept, she says. According to the 2025 homelessness count, 42% of unhoused people in BC became homeless due to eviction. 42%. Of those, 2 in 5 simply could no longer afford the rent. If we're serious about solving this crisis, we need to treat housing like healthcare, transit, and education as a public good, not a speculative commodity. That means direct public investment in non-market housing, co-ops, non-profits, community land trusts, 125,000 new affordable rental homes over the next decade, including 30,000 homes for Indigenous people and 5,000 units of supportive housing, vacancy control, and transparent, inclusive policymaking that reflects community voices, not just developer interests. These are not radical ideas. They are pragmatic, data-driven, and most importantly, just. We can and must do better.
Member, sorry to interrupt you. I believe that we're going to hear an introduction here. If you would just pause for a moment. And our House Leader of the third party. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are a wealthy province in a wealthy country. When we decide something is important, like pipelines or emergency pandemic relief, we move mountains. Housing is no less urgent. We need to stop asking, can we afford to build affordable housing, and start asking, can we afford not to? As Tranjan reminds us, every home counts, but unless the units are affordable, accessible, and secure, we'll be back here in 10 years having the same conversation. Let's ensure that we're not. Let's invest in public solutions to a public crisis. Let's put people, not profits, at the center of our housing policy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.